One of the important and really most interesting things about decentralization is that it can be useful to advance a whole range of objectives. And this is probably what explains why decentralization has become so popular around the world in recent decades. Its potential usefulness to advance a whole range of outcomes that we care about. It should never be thought of as an end in and of itself, but rather a means to these other ends. And so in the handbook, we emphasize three main benefits of decentralization: stability, democracy, and economic development as three objectives that can be advanced when power is shifted from the national level to the subnational level. So first, in terms of stability, decentralization can offer a way to better accommodate diverse local demands, which is especially important where these have given rise in the past to marginalization, insecurity, even conflict. Second, decentralization can be a way to strengthen democracy because it really multiplies and proliferates the spaces for participation and inclusion. And it can also offer a way to make institutions and leaders more accountable by moving government closer to the people. And then third, decentralization can be an important way to advance economic development because it offers potentially a way to respond to citizen demands for public services, as well as an opportunity to provide the kinds of infrastructure at the local level that are critical for economic growth. So decentralization can advance really important objectives at the same time that it's no panacea, and then it can also face challenges and constraints and trade-offs that we also bring into the handbook. To name three, it's often the case that subnational governments simply don't have the administrative capacity that they need to be able to effectively provide the much more important services and roles that they're now being asked to play. So capacity building is a real imperative, and AID has tremendous opportunity to participate in the strengthening of capacity. Second, even when politicians might refer to these lofty goals of democracy, development, and security in their decisions to decentralize, they often do so for really short-term, very immediate kind of political calculations and interests, which can very quickly shift. And so in the handbook, we very much encourage the adoption of a political economy lens to really put front and center these shifting incentives on the part of the officials who adopt and then implement decentralization. And then third, decentralization, we now know, is never a one-shot deal. The decision to decentralize may take place from one day to the next, but the process itself unfolds over potentially a long period of time, and it takes time to achieve the benefits of decentralization. This can be challenging, but it also means that there are, along the way, multiple entry points and opportunities for USAID to hopefully support the process of decentralization.
The updated handbook reflects considerations for assessment, programming, and evaluation of decentralization activities within a fast-changing geopolitical landscape and complex governance challenges facing political leaders today. It does this by engaging with three emergent issues and more directly incorporating evaluation processes than before. The first emergent issue is that of urban governance. As urbanization rates have accelerated in recent years, we wanted to pay special attention to the handbook's treatment of complexity of service delivery and accountability in urban and metropolitan settings. We focus on engaging with the distinctiveness of the urban setting throughout all chapters, with a specific eye toward where such complexities may complicate otherwise routine programming and assessment recommendations. The second emerging issue is a focus on democratic backsliding and social accountability. While the 1990s and early 2000s were a time of democratic expansion and growth around the globe, the past decade has been marked by rollback in democratic practices and adherence to rule of law at both national and local levels of government and within society. We address this in the updated handbook by highlighting specific processes and activities where democratic backsliding may create added pressures and attention to improving accountability at all levels of government and between citizens directly via social networks. The third emerging issue is more direct engagement with distinct forms of fiscal and financial issues. Although the previous version of the handbook addressed these issues in general terms, the updated handbook addresses both the need for and dangers of reliance on own source revenues, the importance of support for public financial management and informal forms of taxation, and considerations of how subnational governments can facilitate a healthy and robust business climate. Finally, this version of the handbook includes a wide expansion in its approach to evaluation. We open up the discussion to motivating considerations, recommendations, and available resources in performance monitoring, evaluation, and collaborating, learning, and adapting practices. We also introduce a case study and build a theory of change using the fictional country of Decentralia, in which we delve into a hypothetical USAID mission that is tasked with increasing provincial accountability for public service delivery. Through the case study, we provide concrete steps for the process of moving from assessment to programming to evaluation. Beyond these additions in substantive topics and evaluation content, the updated handbook also includes a wide range of new visualizations for key concepts and themes, a selection of examples where technology and social media can facilitate decentralization, and a number of new and updated country vignettes that highlight examples of particular importance, complexity, and innovative practices.
The handbook is meant to be used as a reference book for field officers. This means they won't have to read it back to back, but instead they can look for what they need for the specific program or project that they're working on at a given point in time. Officers will also find several text boxes with specific examples and lessons learned from the experiences of different countries. Throughout the text, many figures are used to highlight important principles, concepts, recommendations, and key takeaways, aiming to make the handbook more practical and accessible. The handbook's first 3 chapters introduce key concepts in decentralization, the different forms it can take, from deconcentration to devolution, and its political, administrative, and fiscal dimensions. They also explain the main goals of decentralization and the main obstacles countries usually face from design to implementation. The following 3 chapters offer more practical guidance. Chapter 4 provides key questions for decentralization programmers to use as a way to assess the local context as they work to develop country-appropriate interventions. For example, where did the push for decentralization come from? But also, what's the state of subnational finances? Or in what ways do subnational governments work with civil society organizations in providing public services to the population? The next chapter offers specific strategies and activities that USAID staff may use to support democratic decentralization, always tailored to the country context. These may range from promoting dialogue to providing technical assistance and supporting the drafting of legislation and regulations dealing with decentralization. Finally, Chapter 6 provides a wide range of options for making decisions about what kinds of evaluation, monitoring, and learning processes will best support democratic decentralization programming.